when the Galactic Council's emergency beacon reached Earth with a countdown timer showing 10 days until total annihilation. Every civilized species in the galaxy had already given up hope. The Void Devourers, ancient machines that consumed entire star systems, were approaching the galaxy's core, and the combined fleets of 1,000 worlds had failed to stop them. The Council's message was simple: prepare for extinction. No known technology can build a vessel capable of reaching the galactic core in time. But they hadn't counted on humanity's greatest weakness becoming their salvation: the stubborn refusal to accept the impossible. What happened next would become legend across the stars. Not because humans were the strongest, or the smartest, or the most advanced, but because when the galaxy needed a miracle, humanity did what they did best. They improvised, they innovated, and they absolutely refused to quit. This is the story of how a small blue planet on the galaxy's edge built a starship in 10 days and shocked every civilization in the known universe. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't having all the answers. It's being too stubborn to stop looking for them. The emergency klaxon had been wailing across Earth's global defense network for 3 hours when Director Sarachin finally allowed herself to sit down. Her hands shook as she reached for the cold coffee that had been sitting on her desk since dawn. Outside the reinforced windows of the Geneva Command Center, she could see the massive holographic displays showing the same impossible countdown: 9 days, 14 hours, 23 minutes. "Ma'am, we're getting another transmission from the Galactic Council," reported Lieutenant Torres, his young face pale with exhaustion and fear. "They're requesting confirmation that Earth received the evacuation protocols." Sarah almost laughed, but it came out as a bitter cough instead. Evacuation protocols. As if there was anywhere in the galaxy to run to. The Void Devourers weren't just coming for Earth. They were consuming everything in their path, turning entire solar systems into empty space. The Council's own home worlds were already gone. "Tell them we received their message," she said, setting down the coffee cup with more force than necessary. "And tell them we declined their evacuation suggestion." Torres blinked in confusion. "Mom, you heard me. Earth doesn't run." The communication center buzzed with nervous energy as technicians and military personnel tried to make sense of the data streaming in from across the galaxy. Every few minutes, another star system went dark on the tactical displays. The Void Devourers moved like a plague of metal locusts, their massive forms, each the size of a small moon, devouring matter itself and converting it into more of their kind. Sarah's personal communicator chimed with an urgent message. President Martinez wanted a full briefing in the Situation Room within the hour. But first, she needed to understand exactly what they were facing. "Torres, give me Admiral Harrison and Dr. Reeves. Emergency conference now." The holographic projector in her office flickered to life, displaying the tired faces of Admiral James Harrison, head of Earth Space Defense Force, and Dr. Elena Reeves, the planet's leading expert in xenotechnology. Both looked like they hadn't slept in days. "Sarah," Admiral Harrison said grimly, "I hope you're calling with good news, because I sure don't have any." Dr. Reeves leaned forward in her projection. "The data we're receiving from the Council survivors is disturbing. These Void Devourers aren't just weapons. They're a self-replicating harvesting system. They consume matter at the molecular level and reconstruct it into additional units." "How many are we talking about?" Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Conservative estimates put the current swarm at over 50,000 individual units," Dr. Reeves replied. "And that number is growing exponentially. The Council's combined fleet, including species we didn't even know existed, threw everything they had at them. Antimatter weapons, quantum disruptors, even attempts at temporal manipulation. Nothing worked." Admiral Harrison rubbed his forehead. "Our entire space fleet consists of 12 long-range vessels, none of which are designed for combat beyond our solar system. We're talking about slingshots against nuclear weapons here." Sarah stood up and began pacing. This was the part she hated about leadership, the moment when impossible decisions had to be made with insufficient information. What about the Council's request for Earth to contribute to their evacuation fleet? They want us to load as many humans as possible onto their remaining ships and flee to the Andromeda Galaxy, Dr. Reeves said. Leave Earth behind and hope the Devourers don't follow. How many? Sarah asked quietly. Maybe 50,000 people. Out of 8 billion. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. 50,000. It might as well have been 50. There has to be another option, she said finally. Admiral Harrison shook his head. Sarah, I know what you're thinking, but we need to be realistic here. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy couldn't stop these things. What can Earth possibly do in 10 days that they couldn't accomplish in decades? Dr. Reeves pulled up a holographic display showing the Void Devourer's projected path. They'll reach the galactic core in 9 days. Everything within 1,000 light years will be consumed, including us. Sarah studied the display, her mind racing. The Devourers were following a predictable pattern, consuming systems in a spiral pattern toward the center. Their route would take them past dozens of inhabited worlds, each one falling silent as the swarm approached. Elena, show me their construction process again. Dr. Reeves manipulated the hologram, displaying sensor data from one of the destroyed Council fleets. The massive, angular forms of the Void Devourers moved through space like a tide of darkness, each unit bristling with harvesting appendages that could strip a planet bare in hours. They're not actually alive, Dr. Reeves explained. More like organic machines. They convert consumed matter into both fuel and construction material for new units. The process is incredibly efficient. Almost nothing is wasted. Sarah stopped pacing. Something in the data had caught her attention. Elena, zoom in on the power signatures. The display shifted, showing energy readings from the Devourers. Sarah had spent 15 years in the defense industry before joining the Global Defense Network, and she recognized something that the alien experts might have missed. These energy patterns, she said slowly, they're using controlled fusion, but look at the containment method. Those aren't force fields, they're using magnetic bottles. Primitive magnetic bottles. Admiral Harrison frowned. Primitive by whose standards? By human standards. Sarah's voice was gaining excitement. James, we've been building better magnetic containment systems for decades. Our latest fusion reactors use field configurations that are orders of magnitude more stable. Dr. Reeves leaned closer to her display. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe these things aren't as advanced as everyone thinks. Look at their movement patterns. They're following gravity wells and energy gradients like they're following a map. They're not thinking, they're programmed. And if they're programmed, they can be unprogrammed. Admiral Harrison finished, understanding dawning in his voice. How do we get close enough to these things to do anything about it? Sarah smiled for the first time in hours. It wasn't a pleasant smile. We build a ship. Admiral Harrison laughed, but there was no humor in it. In 9 days? Sarah, our fastest construction projects take months, and that's for simple orbital platforms. You're talking about something that would need to travel faster than light, carry weapons capable of damaging these things, and somehow survive getting close enough to use them. I'm talking about thinking differently, Sarah replied. The Council species have been building ships the same way for thousands of years, slowly, carefully, testing every component. They think in terms of decades and centuries. We think in terms of deadlines and crash programs. She pulled up Earth's industrial databases on her personal display. Shipyards, factories, research facilities, military installations. All of it appeared in a three-dimensional map hovering above her desk. During World War II, human shipbuilders went from laying a keel to launching a completed vessel in under 5 days. The Apollo program went from concept to moon landing in less than a decade using technology that was basically stone knives and bearskins compared to what we have now. Dr. Reeves was studying her own displays now, running calculations. The power requirements alone would be enormous. We need a fusion reactor the size of a city block just for propulsion. Then we build one, Sarah said simply. Admiral Harrison was pulling up logistics data, his expression shifting from skepticism to something that might have been hope. We'd need every major industrial facility on the planet working and coordination. Manufacturing, assembly, testing, all of it happening simultaneously. Can it be done? Sarah asked. Both officers were quiet for a long moment, their attention focused on streams of data and calculations flowing across their displays. Dr. Reeves spoke first. The fusion technology exists. We've got 3 different reactor designs that could work, but they've never been built at the scale we'd need. We'd be talking about construction techniques that don't exist yet. What about materials? Sarah asked. That's the bigger problem, Admiral Harrison said. We need exotic matter for the faster-than-light drive, assuming we can even figure out how to build one. The Council's ships use elements that don't exist in our periodic table. Sarah felt her excitement deflating until Dr. Reeves suddenly straightened in her projection. Wait, Dr. Reeves said. We might not need their technology. I've been working on theoretical, faster-than-light propulsion using quantum entanglement networks. It's completely different from how Council ships work. Instead of bending space, we'd be creating temporary wormholes between quantum-paired particles. Would it work? Sarah asked. I don't know, Dr. Reeves admitted. We've never tested it beyond computer simulations. But the materials we need, we have them. Rare earth elements, superconductors, quantum processors. All stuff we can manufacture here on Earth. Admiral Harrison was nodding slowly. And weapons. Kinetic impactors, Sarah said immediately. We don't need exotic weapons if we can get close enough. A tungsten rod moving at near light speed will punch through anything. The engineering challenges would be insane, Dr. Reeves warned. We need to coordinate manufacturing across every continent, design systems that have never been built before, and somehow test everything while we're building it. Sarah looked at the countdown timer still flashing on her wall display. 9 days, 13 hours, 42 minutes. Then, we better get started. Admiral Harrison leaned back in his chair. Sarah, what you're proposing is impossible. Even if every human on Earth stopped what they were doing and focused on this project, the timeline is just too tight. James, 3 days ago, the idea of machines eating entire galaxies was impossible. 2 hours ago, the idea of Earth mounting any kind of defense was impossible. Maybe it's time we stopped worrying about what's impossible and started figuring out what's necessary. Dr. Reeves was running more calculations, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. We need to design the ship in modular sections, build them simultaneously at different locations, then assemble everything in orbit. No time for traditional testing phases. What's the failure rate on something like that? Admiral Harrison asked. Under normal circumstances? Probably 90% or higher, Dr. Reeves admitted. But these aren't normal circumstances. Sarah made her decision. Elena, I want preliminary designs within 6 hours. James, start coordinating with every space-capable nation on Earth. Tell them what we're planning. And if they think we're crazy? Admiral Harrison asked. Then we'll be crazy together. Sarah cut the connections and stood alone in her office, looking out at the bustling command center beyond her windows. In 9 days, those displays would either be showing the successful defense of Earth, or they'd be dark forever. She opened a new communication channel to the president's office. It was time to explain to the world's leaders that Earth's only hope lay in attempting something that had never been done before by people who had never done it, using technology that existed only in theory, with no time for mistakes and no backup plan. It was, Sarah reflected, either the most human plan ever conceived or the most foolish. Possibly both. The countdown timer continued its relentless march toward zero, each passing second representing thousands of lives across the galaxy that were depending on a small blue planet to accomplish the impossible. Again, the emergency session of the United Earth Council convened at 0300 hours, with representatives joining via quantum-encrypted hologram from every major nation on the planet. President Martinez sat at the head of the table in Geneva, his face showing the strain of the past 12 hours. Around him, the translucent forms of world leaders flickered in their designated seats, some looking skeptical, others openly worried, and a few appearing genuinely angry at being woken up for what they assumed was another drill. Ladies and gentlemen, President Martinez began, What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. For hours ago, Director Chun presented me with a plan that violates every principle of sensible engineering and reasonable timelines. It also happens to be our only chance of survival. Prime Minister Yamamoto of Japan leaned forward in her projection. With respect, Mr. President, we've all seen the reports from the Galactic Council. If their combined fleets couldn't stop these void devourers, what exactly are we supposed to do? President Martinez gestured to Director Chun, who stood and activated the room's central holographic display. The image showed a sleek, angular vessel that looked unlike any ship humanity had ever built. It was massive, easily the size of city block, with sections that seemed to fold in on themselves in geometrically impossible ways. This is the FSS Defiance, Chin said. Faster than light, capable, heavily armed, and designed to reach the galactic core before the Void Devourers complete their harvest. We're going to build it in 8 days. The silence that followed was broken by President Volkov of Russia, who began laughing. It wasn't a happy sound. Director Chun, he said, I have deep respect for American optimism, but this is beyond fantasy. Our most advanced spacecraft take years to construct, because we've never tried to build one this way before, Chun replied calmly. She manipulated the hologram, breaking the ship down into component sections. Modular construction, simultaneous manufacturing across multiple continents, revolutionary propulsion systems, and assembly in orbit. We're not building a ship. We're building a proof of concept that humanity refuses to give up. Chancellor Weber of Germany studied the technical specifications scrolling beside the ship's image. Dr. Reeves' quantum entanglement drive. This is purely theoretical. Dr. Reeves' hologram appeared beside Chin. 3 days ago, so is everything we know about the Void Devourers. The mathematics are sound. We've run the simulations thousands of times. Simulations, scoffed President Petrov of Brazil. You're asking us to commit our entire industrial capacity to an untested theory. Admiral Harrison joined the projection. The alternative is sitting here and waiting to die. The Galactic Council sent their evacuation ships yesterday. They can carry maybe 50,000 humans to Andromeda Galaxy. That leaves 7.9 billion of us here to face the Devourers. President Liu of China had been silent throughout the discussion, studying data on his personal display. Now he looked up with a thoughtful expression. Director Chun, break down the manufacturing requirements. What does each nation need to contribute? Chin's fingers danced across the holographic controls, displaying a complex web of manufacturing assignments. China gets the quantum processing cores and primary hull sections. Your manufacturing capacity and rare earth element processing are unmatched. Japan handles the precision electronics and sensor arrays. Germany and the European Union manufacture the fusion reactor components. Russia provides the raw materials and heavy construction. The United States coordinates overall assembly and handles the weapons systems. What about the smaller nations? Asked President Anderson of Sweden. Everyone contributes. Software development, component testing, logistics coordination, communications relay. This project requires every industrial nation on Earth working in perfect synchronization. Prime Minister Singh of India reviewed the technical specifications. The power requirements for the quantum drive alone would drain our entire electrical grid, which is why we're building the fusion reactors first, Dr. Reeves explained. Once we have clean, unlimited power, everything else becomes possible. President Martinez could see the room dividing into believers and skeptics. He needed to tip the balance before doubt could take hold. 8 hours ago, I thought Director Chun had lost her mind, he said. Then I realized something. This isn't about whether we can build this ship. It's about whether we're going to face extinction sitting down or standing up. Pretty words, President Volkov said, but they won't overcome the laws of physics. Chun stepped forward. President Volkov, in 1961, your nation put the first human in space using rockets built with slide rules and mechanical calculators. In 1969, America put men on the moon with computers less powerful than a modern smartphone. We've always done impossible things when the alternative was unacceptable. She gestured to the ship's specifications. Look at the design requirements. Yes, it's ambitious beyond anything we've attempted. But break it down component by component, and every piece uses technology we already understand. We're not inventing new physics. We're just applying existing science in ways we've never tried before. Dr. Reeves pulled up manufacturing timelines. The fusion reactors use magnetic containment systems based on our current technology, just scaled up. The hull sections use advanced composites we've been developing for aerospace applications. The quantum drives use principles we've proven in laboratory settings. The weapons are simple kinetic impactors, Admiral Harrison added. Tungsten rods with basic guidance systems. We've been using similar technology for decades. President Liu was nodding slowly. You're saying this isn't about building new technology, it's about building existing technology faster and better than ever before. Exactly, Chen said. We're not trying to match Galactic Council technology. We're building something completely different using human engineering principles. Chancellor Weber leaned back in her chair. What you're describing is essentially converting Earth into a single factory with a single purpose. For 8 days, Chen confirmed. Every shipyard, every manufacturing facility, every research laboratory working on different pieces of the same puzzle. President Martinez saw his opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not asking you to believe this will work. I'm asking you to believe it's worth trying. Prime Minister Yamamoto spoke up. Director Chun, what happens if we fail? If we commit everything to this project and the ship doesn't work? Chen's expression was grim. Then, we die having tried everything we could think of. But if we don't try, we die anyway. The room fell silent as each leader considered the choice before them. President Liu was the first to speak. China will commit our full manufacturing capacity to this project. President Martinez felt a surge of relief. China's involvement would make or break the entire plan. Chancellor Weber nodded next. Germany and the European Union are in. Russia will provide materials and construction support, President Volkov said reluctantly. But I want on record that I think this is madness. Noted, President Martinez said. Prime Minister Yamamoto, Japan will handle electronics and sensor systems. One by one, the world leaders committed their nations to the project. Some enthusiastically, others with obvious reservations, but all recognizing the same fundamental truth. Doing something insane was better than doing nothing at all. Dr. Reeves, President Martinez, said, "How soon can you have detailed construction plans ready?" "We've been working on preliminary designs for the past 4 hours," she replied. "Complete blueprints and manufacturing specifications will be ready within 6 hours." Admiral Harrison, coordinate with military commands worldwide. We need every orbital construction facility, every launch system, and every piece of space-capable equipment on the planet. Already in progress, sir. Chen pulled up a new display showing Earth's industrial capacity. We're going to start construction simultaneously at 12 primary manufacturing sites. Hull sections in Shanghai and Detroit, fusion reactors in Munich and Moscow, quantum drives in Tokyo and California, weapons systems in Virginia and Israel. What about testing? Chancellor Weber asked. We test as we build, Dr. Reeves said. Every component gets verified before integration, but we don't have time for full system testing until final assembly. President Petrov shook his head. You're talking about building the most complex machine in human history with no prototype, no testing phase, and no backup plan. That's correct, Chen said. We get one chance to get this right. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. These weren't just political leaders anymore. They were people facing the end of everything they knew and loved, trying to find hope in an impossible plan proposed by desperate engineers. President Martinez stood up. This session is officially over. As of this moment, Earth is under construction emergency protocols. Every resource, every factory, every brilliant mind on this planet is now focused on one goal: building humanity's first galactic starship before the galaxy ends. As the holograms of world leaders began flickering out, Chen remained behind with President Martinez. "Sarah," he said quietly, "please tell me you really think this can work." Chen looked at the countdown timer on the wall display. 7 days, 18 hours, 31 minutes. "I think it's our only shot," she said. "And I think humanity has never backed down from impossible odds before." "That's not exactly an answer." Chen smiled grimly. "Mr. President, in 7 days we're either going to prove that humans can build miracles when necessary, or we're going to fail spectacularly while trying. Either way, we'll go down swinging." President Martinez nodded and left for his next meeting. Emergency conferences with industrial leaders, military commanders, and the heads of every major corporation on Earth. Within hours, the global economy would essentially cease to exist as every manufacturing facility redirected toward a single purpose. Chen remained alone in the council chamber, looking at the holographic display of the ship they were about to attempt building. The FSS Defiance hung in the air before her, beautiful and impossible, and representing humanity's refusal to accept extinction quietly. Her communicator chimed with an urgent message from Orbital Station Alpha 7. Construction crews were already moving into position. Material shipments were being redirected from civilian projects to military ones. The world's finest engineers were being pulled from their regular assignments to work on subsystems they'd never seen before. In shipyards from Shanghai to Seattle, workers were receiving blueprints for hull sections that wouldn't make sense until final assembly. In laboratories from Tokyo to Stockholm, physicists were building quantum processors based on theories that existed only in research papers. In refineries from Texas to Siberia, materials were being processed to tolerances that had never been attempted before. Earth was transforming itself into something it had never been, a single organism with a single purpose, racing against time to build its own salvation. The countdown timer ticked down another second, and Chen headed for the door. 7 days, 18 hours, 30 minutes. Time to build a miracle. Day 3 of construction brought the first major crisis. Dr. Elena Reeves stood in the primary engineering bay of Orbital Station Alpha 7, staring at the quantum processing cores that should have been humming with perfectly synchronized energy patterns. Instead, they were displaying chaotic fluctuations that made her stomach clench with anxiety. "The quantum entanglement is destabilizing faster than our models predicted," reported Chief Engineer Kim Nakamura, his usually calm demeanor cracked with exhaustion and stress. "We're losing coherence after 47 seconds instead of the theoretical 12 minutes we need for faster-than-light transit." Around them, hundreds of technicians worked frantically on different sections of what would become the FSS Defiance. The ship was taking shape faster than anyone had thought possible. Hull sections were being welded together in perfect precision. The massive fusion reactors were already generating power, and weapons systems were coming online ahead of schedule. But none of that mattered if the quantum drive couldn't sustain a wormhole long enough to reach the galactic core. Dr. Reeves pulled up the quantum field equations on her holographic display, her mind racing through possibilities. What's the failure pattern? Is it random decoherence or systematic breakdown? That's the weird part, Nakamura said, highlighting specific data points. It's not random at all. There's a pattern, but it's not matching any of our theoretical models. Dr. Reeves studied the data, her frown deepening. Wait a minute. This isn't a failure. This is interference. Something is actively disrupting the quantum field. Before Nakamura could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lighting bathed the engineering bay in red as automated systems announced an incoming priority transmission from Earth. Director Chen's hologram flickered to life in front of them, her expression tight with urgency. "Elena, we're getting reports of similar quantum disruptions at all construction sites. Whatever's happening up there is happening everywhere." "That's impossible," Dr. Reeves said immediately. "Quantum interference can't propagate across interplanetary distances without a carrier wave. Unless something is deliberately causing it, Chen replied grimly. Elena, we're getting strange readings from deep space sensors. There's something out there, and it's not showing up on conventional scans. The implications hit Dr. Reeves like a physical blow. The Void Devourers. They know what we're doing. Chen nodded. We think they're using some kind of quantum dampening field to prevent faster-than-light travel. That's probably how they've been stopping evacuees from escaping. Dr. Reeves felt her carefully constructed optimism crumbling. They've been so focused on building the ship that they hadn't considered the possibility that the enemy might actively interfere with their efforts. How long do we have before the interference completely prevents quantum entanglement? She asked. Nakamura ran rapid calculations on his display. At the current rate of increase, maybe 18 hours before we lose quantum coherence entirely. And how long do we need to complete the drive system? 36 hours minimum, assuming everything else goes perfectly. The mathematics were brutally simple. They were going to lose the capability to build their propulsion system before they finished building it. Dr. Reeves stared at the quantum cores, her mind racing through alternatives. Kim, what if we don't try to maintain stable entanglement? I don't follow. What if instead of creating a sustained wormhole, we create a series of very short-duration quantum tunnels, like stepping stones across space instead of a single bridge? Nakamura's eyes widened as he understood the implications. That would require recalibrating the entire quantum processing matrix, and the power requirements would be enormous. We need to channel the full output of all 3 fusion reactors simultaneously. But could it work? Theoretically, yes. But the timing would have to be perfect. We'd be creating and collapsing wormholes in microsecond intervals while traveling at near light speed. One calculation error, and we'd materialize inside a star or scatter our atoms across half the galaxy. Dr. Reeves was already pulling up new equations, her fingers dancing across holographic controls as she ran preliminary calculations. Elena to all engineering teams. I need immediate consultation on quantum drive redesign. Emergency priority. Within minutes, holograms of the world's leading physicists began appearing around them. Dr. Sarah Okafor from the University of Lagos, Professor Chin Wei from Beijing Advanced Physics Institute, Dr. James Blackwood from MIT, Professor Maria Santos from Sao Paulo Quantum Research Center. The best minds in human physics, all looking exhausted and worried. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Reeves began, we have 18 hours to completely redesign our faster-than-light drive system. Here's what we're dealing with. She explained the quantum interference problem and her proposed solution. The assembled physicists listened in stunned silence as she outlined the stepping-stone approach to wormhole transit. Dr. Blackwood spoke first. Elena, what you're describing is theoretically possible, but the computational requirements are beyond anything we've ever attempted. We need quantum processors capable of performing calculations at the Planck time scale. Professor Santos was already running simulations. The power cycling alone would stress our fusion reactors beyond their design specifications. We need to modify the magnetic containment systems to handle burst loads. Can it be done? Dr. Reeves asked directly. Professor Chun Wei nodded slowly. The quantum processors can be modified. We need to completely rewrite the control algorithms, but the hardware is capable of the required processing speed. Dr. Okafor was studying power distribution schematics. The fusion reactors are a bigger problem. They're designed for steady output, not the kind of rapid power cycling this would require. We need to redesign the plasma containment systems. How long? Dr. Reeves pressed. 16 hours, minimum, Dr. Okafor replied. And that's assuming we can coordinate modifications across multiple construction sites simultaneously. Dr. Reeves felt the weight of impossible deadlines crushing down on her. 16 hours to modify systems that had taken 3 days to build, while fighting against enemy interference that was growing stronger by the hour. Her communicator chimed with an urgent message from Admiral Harrison. Elena, we've got another problem. The Galactic Council ships are requesting permission to begin evacuation immediately. They're saying Earth's quantum interference is spreading to their vessels. Dr. Reeves closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them, her expression was determined. Admiral, tell the Council ships to maintain their positions. If they leave now, their evacuation becomes irrelevant anyway. We're all betting everything on making this work. She turned to the assembled physicists. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to attempt something that would normally take years of research and testing. We're going to redesign our faster-than-light drive system in 16 hours, modify fusion reactors that are already built, and recalibrate quantum processors while they're operating. Professor Santos looked skeptical. Elena, the margin for error is essentially zero. One mistake, and we lose everything. We're already losing everything, Dr. Reeves replied. The question is whether we lose while trying or lose while giving up. Dr. Blackwood was pulling up engineering schematics. If we're really doing this, we need to coordinate modifications across all construction sites. The quantum processors in Tokyo need to sync with the fusion reactors in Munich, which need to sync with the control systems in California. Real-time coordination across 12 time zones with no room for communication delays, Professor Chinwei added. We'll need quantum entanglement communication systems between all sites. Dr. Reeves almost laughed at the irony. They needed quantum entanglement to coordinate building a system that worked around quantum interference. Actually, that's brilliant, she said. We can use localized quantum entanglement for communication while building a system that bypasses the interference affecting long-range quantum tunneling. Nakamura was already coordinating with engineering teams worldwide. I'm establishing quantum communication links between all construction sites now. Teams in Shanghai report they can begin fusion reactor modifications immediately. Tokyo is ready to start quantum processor recalibration. Dr. Reeves opened communication channels to every construction site simultaneously. Her voice echoed across 12 different facilities on 3 different continents as she addressed thousands of engineers and technicians. This is Dr. Reeves with emergency modification protocols. We are implementing quantum drive redesign effective immediately. All fusion reactor teams begin power cycling modifications. All quantum processing teams begin algorithm rewrite. All coordination teams establish real-time synchronization protocols. She paused, looking around at the faces of people who had been working without rest for 3 days, who were about to be asked to perform miracles on an even tighter timeline. I know you're exhausted. I know this seems impossible. But 16 hours from now, we're either going to have built humanity's first galactic starship, or we're going to have tried everything we could think of. Either way, we're not giving up. Across the construction sites, teams began implementing modifications that had never been attempted before. In Munich, engineers started reconfiguring plasma containment systems while the fusion reactors were still running. In Tokyo, programmers began rewriting quantum algorithms in real time while the processors were calculating wormhole mathematics. In California, systems coordinators established synchronization protocols between facilities thousands of miles apart. The FSS Defiance continued taking shape around them, no longer just a ship, but a symbol of humanity's refusal to accept the impossible. Every welded joint, every installed component, every completed system represented the combined will of 8 billion people focused on a single goal. Dr. Reeves moved between workstations, coordinating modifications, solving problems, and making decisions that would determine whether humanity survived the next week. The quantum interference continued growing stronger, but her teams were adapting faster than the enemy could adjust. 15 hours and 37 minutes later, as the countdown timer showed 3 days, 12 hours, and 8 minutes remaining, Chief Engineer Nakamura looked up from his monitoring station with an expression of amazed disbelief. Elena, he said quietly, I'm reading stable quantum field generation. The stepping stone drive system is operational. Dr. Reeves felt her knees go weak with relief. Around them, cheers erupted from engineering teams as the successful test results propagated across all construction sites. They had done it. In less than 4 days, humanity had built a faster-than-light drive system using principles that existed only in theory, while fighting against enemy interference, on a timeline that violated every principle of reasonable engineering. But, as Dr. Reeves looked at the countdown timer, she realized their celebration was premature. They had solved the propulsion problem, but they still needed to complete final assembly, systems integration, and somehow find a crew crazy enough to take an untested starship into combat against enemies that had destroyed civilizations thousands of years old. 3 days, 12 hours, 7 minutes. Time to finish building a miracle. Captain Marcus Torres had commanded orbital defense platforms, deep space reconnaissance missions, and emergency rescue operations across the solar system. He had faced pirates, equipment failures, and the kind of split-second decisions that meant the difference between life and death for hundreds of people. But nothing in his 20-year military career had prepared him for standing on the bridge of a starship that shouldn't exist, watching his crew run final systems checks on technology that had been theoretical concepts less than a week ago. The FSS Defiance stretched around him like a living thing, its corridors humming with power from fusion reactors that generated more energy than most planets consumed. Through the main view screen, he could see Earth shrinking behind them as they completed their final orbital systems test. In 36 hours, this ship would either save humanity or become the most expensive funeral pyre in history. "Captain," called Lieutenant Sarah Park from the communication station, "we're receiving final crew assignments from Earth Command. They're asking for confirmation that all department heads are aboard and ready." Torres nodded, though he still couldn't quite believe the crew manifest. Dr. Elena Reeves, as Chief Science Officer, despite having never served on a starship. Chief Engineer Kim Nakamura, who had literally helped build the ship he was now responsible for maintaining. Commander Lisa Santos, as Tactical Officer, with expertise in weapons systems that had never been tested in actual combat. Dr. James Chun as Chief Medical Officer, because someone had to be responsible for keeping the crew alive during a mission that would probably kill them all. "All stations, report status," Torres commanded. "Navigation systems online," reported Ensign Rodriguez from the helm. "Quantum drive is showing green across all parameters. DR. Reeves' stepping stone navigation protocol is loaded and ready. Engineering reports all fusion reactors operating at optimal efficiency," came Nakamura's voice over the comm system. "Power distribution is stable. Backup systems are active. Tactical systems ready," Commander Santos announced. "All kinetic impactor batteries loaded and targeted. Point defense systems active. We're as ready for combat as an untested ship can be." Dr. Reeves looked up from the science station, her face showing the exhaustion of someone who hadn't slept properly in a week. "Quantum sensors are detecting continued interference from the Void Devourers, but it's not affecting our local systems. Long-range scans show they've consumed another 3 star systems since yesterday." Torres felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a physical burden. Every passing hour meant billions of lives lost as the Devourers continued their inexorable advance toward the galactic core. The combined fleets of 1,000 civilizations had failed to stop them, and now Earth's desperate gamble was about to be put to the ultimate test. His personal communicator chimed with an incoming message from Director Chun on Earth. Her hologram appeared next to his command chair, showing the strain of a week spent coordinating the impossible. "Captain Torres, you are cleared for departure at your discretion. Our deep space sensors show the Devourers will reach the galactic core in 34 hours. Your estimated travel time using the quantum stepping stone drive is 18 hours, giving you approximately 16 hours to locate and neutralize the enemy." "Understood, Director. Are you certain about the target location?" Chen's expression was grim. "Our analysis of Galactic Council data suggests the Devourers are converging on something at the galactic core. Not just consuming systems randomly, but moving toward a specific destination. If we can disrupt whatever they're trying to accomplish there, we might be able to stop the entire swarm." Dr. Reeves spoke up from her station. "Director, what if we're wrong about their vulnerability? Our weapons are designed to exploit weaknesses in their magnetic containment systems, but we're operating on very limited data. Then we improvise, Chen replied simply. Humanity's greatest strength has always been adapting to situations we don't fully understand. Torres stood and walked to the main view screen, looking out at the stars that humanity had dreamed of reaching for millennia. Now they were about to travel further into space than any human had ever gone. Not as explorers, but as warriors carrying the hopes of their entire species. Dr. Reeves, confirm our navigation plot to the galactic core. Course plotted and verified, she replied. The quantum stepping stone drive will create a series of micro wormholes in rapid sequence. Travel time should be approximately 17 hours and 43 minutes, assuming we don't encounter any unexpected interference. Commander Santos, what's our tactical situation? We're armed with 12 kinetic impactor batteries, each capable of firing tungsten rods at 97% light speed. Point defense systems can engage approximately 200 targets simultaneously. Against conventional enemies, we'd be moderately well armed. Against the Devourers, she shrugged. Torres understood. They were essentially taking a single untested ship into combat against an enemy that had destroyed entire galactic civilizations. It was either the bravest thing humanity had ever attempted or the most foolish. All stations, prepare for quantum drive activation, he announced. This is humanity's first journey to the galactic core. Let's make sure it's not our last. Dr. Reeves began the activation sequence, her hands dancing over controls that represented the culmination of human scientific achievement. Quantum processors online. Fusion reactors transferring to drive power. Wormhole calculations confirmed. Torres felt the ship's vibration change as massive energies built up in the quantum drive cores. Outside the view screen, space itself seemed to shimmer with barely contained forces that could either carry them across the galaxy or scatter their atoms across interstellar space. Drive activation in 10 seconds, Dr. Reeves announced. All hands brace for quantum transit. The FSS Defiance leaped forward into impossibility. Torres had experienced faster-than-light travel on Galactic Council ships during diplomatic missions, a smooth transition that felt like stepping through a doorway into a different room. The quantum stepping stone drive felt nothing like that. Instead of smooth acceleration, reality seemed to stutter around them. Space outside, the view screen flickered between star fields, showing glimpses of stellar formations thousands of light-years apart as the ship jumped between quantum tunnels in microsecond intervals. Transit status nominal, Dr. Reeves reported, though her voice sounded strained. We're maintaining stable wormhole generation. Current position approximately 4,000 light-years from Earth. Torres watched the navigation display as their position marker leaped across the galactic map in discrete jumps. Each quantum tunnel carried them hundreds of light-years closer to their destination. But the process required constant recalculation as the ship navigated gravitational fields and stellar densities that could destabilize their wormholes. Captain, called Lieutenant Parr from communications, we're receiving automated distress signals from multiple systems along our route. The Devourers are still active in this region. Any inhabited systems? Torres asked. Dr. Reeves checked her sensors. Negative. These appear to be mining operations and automated facilities. The Devourers consumed all biological life in this sector approximately 6 days ago. The casual mention of genocide made Torres's stomach clench. 6 days ago, those had been thriving worlds with billions of inhabitants. Now they were empty space marked only by distress beacons broadcasting to no one. Engineering to bridge, came Nakamura's voice over the comm. Captain, the quantum drive is performing better than expected. We're maintaining higher efficiency than our models predicted. At this rate, we'll reach the galactic core in 16 hours instead of 18. Outstanding work, Chief. What's our reactor status? All 3 reactors running smooth. The burst power cycling for the quantum drive is actually easier on the systems than we thought. These fusion reactors were built for much higher stress loads. Torres felt a moment of genuine pride in his crew and his ship. They were not only surviving their impossible journey, they were exceeding expectations. Dr. Reeves, what are we seeing on long-range sensors? The Devourers are definitely converging on something at the galactic core, she replied, highlighting contacts on the tactical display. Scanner resolution isn't good enough to determine what, but there's an enormous energy signature coming from that region, something much larger than their individual units. Commander Santos studied the tactical data. Captain, if they're all concentrating in one location, that could work in our favor. Our kinetic impactors are most effective against group targets. It could also mean we're flying into the largest concentration of hostile forces in galactic history, Torres replied. But that's what we came for. Hours passed as the FSS Defiance continued its unprecedented journey across the galaxy. Torres found himself moving between stations, checking on his crew, monitoring systems, and trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. They were attempting something no human had ever done, using technology that had never been tested against an enemy that had never been defeated. Captain, Dr. Reeves said suddenly, we're picking up massive energy readings ahead. Range approximately 200 light-years. The galactic core? Yes, sir. And, Captain, there's something else. The energy signature isn't just from the Devourers. There's something at the galactic core that's generating power on a scale I've never seen before. Torres felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of power? I don't know. But whatever the Devourers are converging on, it's not just another star system. It's something that's been built there. The implications were staggering. The Void Devourers weren't just randomly consuming the galaxy. They were heading towards something specific, something that had been waiting for them at the galactic core. Time to arrival? Torres asked. 14 hours, 37 minutes, Dr. Reeves replied. Torres stood in the center of his bridge, surrounded by instruments displaying information about their impossible journey through space that no human eyes had ever seen. In 14 hours, they would discover what lay at the heart of their galaxy, and whether humanity's desperate gamble had any chance of success. All hands, this is the captain, he announced shipwide. We are now approximately 200 light-years from our destination. In 14 hours, we will engage an enemy that has never been defeated by any known civilization. We are one ship carrying the hopes of every human being who has ever lived. He paused, looking around at his bridge crew, scientists and engineers who had become warriors out of necessity, people who had spent the past week building miracles and were now about to test them against impossible odds. Whatever we find at the galactic core, whatever we're about to face, remember that we represent 8 billion people who refused to give up when giving up was the logical choice. We are the FSS Defiance, and today we're going to live up to our name. The ship continued its journey through the quantum stepping stones, carrying humanity's last hope toward a confrontation that would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. The galactic core defied every expectation Captain Torres had formed during their 17-hour journey through quantum space. Instead of finding a massive concentration of void devourers surrounding some ancient stellar phenomenon, the FSS Defiance emerged from its final quantum tunnel to discover something that made his blood run cold. "My God," whispered Dr. Reeves from the science station, her voice barely audible over the bridge's background hum. "Captain, you need to see this." The main view screen displayed a sight that would haunt Torres for the rest of his life. The galactic core wasn't being consumed by the void devourers, it was producing them. Stretching across hundreds of cubic light-years, a massive artificial structure dominated the region where the galaxy's central black hole should have been. It looked like a technological cancer that had grown to consume stellar mass itself, converting matter into endless streams of the angular, predatory forms they had come to recognize as void devourers. Sensor analysis coming in, Dr. Reeves reported, her scientific training overriding her shock. That structure is approximately 12 light-years in diameter. It's using the galactic black hole as a power source and converting stellar matter into devourer units at a rate of approximately 50,000 units per hour. Commander Santos stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "Captain, we're reading over 10 million individual devourer units in the surrounding space." They're not converging on something. They're being manufactured here. Torres felt his carefully constructed hope crumbling. They had come to stop an invasion, only to discover they were facing something far worse. A self-replicating war machine that had turned the galaxy's own core into a factory for producing instruments of extinction. "How long has this been operational?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. Dr. Reeves ran rapid calculations. "Based on the current output rate and the estimated number of devourers we've encountered, this facility has been active for at least 10,000 years. Possibly much longer." 10,000 years, Torres repeated numbly. "They've been producing these things for 10,000 years, and we're just now encountering them." "Not necessarily," Dr. Reeves said, her voice gaining excitement as she analyzed more data. "Captain, the energy signatures suggest this facility has been dormant for most of that time. Something activated it recently, within the past 50 years. Chief Engineer Nakamura's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, I'm seeing massive power fluctuations from that structure. Whatever it's doing, it's drawing energy directly from the black hole's accretion disk. The engineering involved is beyond anything we've ever imagined." Torres studied the tactical display, his mind racing through options. The original plan had been to locate the Void Devourer's weak points and exploit them with kinetic weapons. But they weren't facing a fleet of invading ships. They were facing a production facility that could replace any losses faster than they could inflict damage. "Dr. Reeves, what happens if we target the structure itself instead of the individual devourers?" "Unknown," she replied honestly. "The structure appears to be using exotic matter for structural support. Our kinetic impactors might damage it, but something that large and complex probably has extensive self-repair capabilities." "Commander Santos, what's our tactical situation?" "We're heavily outgunned," Santos replied bluntly. "Even if every shot we fired destroyed a devourer, we'd run out of ammunition long before we made a meaningful dent in their numbers. And that assumes they don't just overwhelm us with sheer mass." Torres felt the weight of impossible decisions settling on his shoulders. They had come to save the galaxy, but the scope of what they faced was beyond anything humanity could hope to combat with a single ship. His contemplation was interrupted by Lieutenant Park's urgent voice. "Captain, we're being scanned by something. Energy signatures are unlike anything in our database." "Devourers?" Torres asked. "No, sir. The scans are coming from the central structure itself." Dr. Reeves looked up from her sensors with an expression of amazed disbelief. "Captain, we're receiving a communication signal. It's imperfect English." Torres felt his world shift. "Put it through." The view screen flickered, replacing the image of the massive structure with something even more shocking, a human face. Elderly, dignified, with eyes that held depths of knowledge and sadness that seemed impossible. "Greetings," the figure said in a cultured accent that might have been British. "I am Dr. Aldrich Kepler, formerly of the European Space Consortium's Deep Space Research Division. I apologize for the rather dramatic circumstances of our first meeting." Torres stared at the screen in shock. "Dr. Kepler? How is this possible?" "According to our records, the Deep Space Research Division was lost over 40 years ago. 43 years, 7 months, and 16 days, Dr. Kepler corrected with sad precision. "Our expedition discovered this facility while investigating gravitational anomalies at the galactic core. What we found was unprecedented." Dr. Reeves leaned forward. "Dr. Kepler, are you responsible for activating this structure?" The elderly scientist's expression became deeply pained. "I'm afraid so, Dr. Reeves. You see, this facility isn't a weapon in the conventional sense. It's a test." "A test?" Torres demanded. "A test that's destroying entire civilizations?" "A test of species maturation," Dr. Kepler replied sadly. "This facility was built by a civilization that achieved technological transcendence millions of years ago. Before ascending to whatever realm they now inhabit, they left this structure as a kind of cosmic examination." Commander Santos had joined them at the main display. "What kind of examination requires building machines that consume galaxies?" an examination of whether emerging civilizations can overcome their fundamental limitations when faced with extinction, Dr. Kepler explained. The facility monitors galactic development, waiting for species to reach a certain technological threshold. When that threshold is reached, it activates and begins producing devourers. Torres felt sick understanding beginning to dawn. You're saying this is our fault? That humanity reaching space triggered this? Not just humanity, Dr. Kepler said gently. Any species that achieves faster-than-light travel activates the test. The Galactic Council's expansion into deep space 50 years ago was the triggering event. Dr. Reeves was running calculations frantically. Dr. Kepler, what are the parameters of this test? How is success determined? The test measures whether civilizations can transcend their individual limitations and work together to create solutions beyond their apparent capabilities, Dr. Kepler replied. Most species fail because they compete for resources or flee rather than cooperate. Torres began to understand. But humanity didn't flee or compete. We built something impossible. Precisely, Dr. Kepler said, his expression brightening for the first time. Captain Torres, the FSS Defiance represents something unprecedented in my observations. A species that not only refused evacuation, but actively chose to attempt the impossible rather than accept defeat. So we passed your test? Commander Santos asked. The test isn't over, Dr. Kepler replied. The Devourers will continue their expansion unless the facility is properly deactivated. But your arrival here proves that humanity, and by extension, the species of this galaxy, have demonstrated the transcendent cooperation the test was designed to measure. Dr. Reeves looked up from her calculations. Dr. Kepler, what do we need to do? The facility's control systems require activation by representatives of multiple species working in concert, Dr. Kepler explained. I can provide the human component, but you'll need representatives from other civilizations. Torres felt a moment of despair. The Galactic Council fleets are scattered across empty space. How are we supposed to gather representatives from multiple species? Lieutenant Parks suddenly looked up from her communication station. Captain, I'm detecting incoming signals. Multiple ships, different configurations. It looks like survivors from various council fleets are converging on our position. The tactical display lit up with dozens of contacts approaching their position. Ships from the Androni Federation, the Crystalline Collective, the Terran Republic's various member species, and civilizations Torres didn't even recognize. How do they know to come here? He asked. Dr. Kepler smiled. Because your arrival triggered a galaxy-wide broadcast explaining the test parameters. Every surviving ship in the galaxy now knows that the solution lies here, and that cooperation is the key to survival. Over the next 6 hours, Torres watched something unprecedented unfold. Ships that had been enemies for centuries worked together to coordinate an approach to the facility. Species that had never communicated directly shared technical knowledge to solve compatibility problems. The bridge of the FSS Defiance became a diplomatic center where beings who had spent millennia in conflict found common ground in their shared determination to survive. The deactivation process itself required precise coordination between representatives of 12 different species, each contributing unique technological capabilities to access the facility's control systems. Dr. Kepler guided them through sequences that were as much philosophical test as technical procedure, requiring demonstration that the assembled civilizations could truly function as a unified whole. When the facility finally powered down, its massive structure going dark as the Devourer production lines shut down permanently, Torres felt something he hadn't experienced since this crisis began: genuine hope for the future. This is Dr. Kepler to all assembled vessels, came the transmission from the now-dormant facility. The test has been completed successfully. The galaxy has demonstrated its readiness to transcend individual limitations and function as a cooperative civilization. Dr. Reeves looked up from her sensors. They hadn't just saved the galaxy. They had fundamentally changed it. The crisis had forced civilizations to cooperate in ways they never had before, creating bonds and alliances that would reshape galactic politics for millennia to come. The ship that had been built in 10 days through impossible cooperation had become the symbol and catalyst for a new age of unprecedented unity among the stars. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that humanity had always known but never fully appreciated. Sometimes the most human response to impossible odds isn't to find a solution that already exists, but to create one that never existed before. The FSS Defiance carried that lesson home to Earth, along with the knowledge that humanity's greatest strength, the stubborn refusal to accept the impossible, had just changed the course of galactic history. Behind them, the galactic core lay quiet and peaceful for the first time in 50 years, while ahead of them stretched infinite possibilities among the stars.